and the fine expertise that we received through this whole process. Talk about one part. The Republicans in thank all of you that worked on it, and now turn it over to my colleague and co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Mr. Keith Ellison.
All right, thank you, Raul. Let's hear for Raul. Well, I want to thank the 44 groups that have joined with us. We cannot move it forward without you. We really believe in the Progressive Caucus that our strength lies in the grassroots. And so for those of you who are out there fighting for workers, fighting for women, fighting for justice based on your faith, community, no matter what, fighting for the environment, we thank you. Fighting for democracy, we thank you. We need you. And the hashtag is people's budget. And so please note that. With no further ado, please listen to my friend Barbara Lee.
Thank you, Congressman Ellison. First time, I just have to thank you and Congressman Grijalva for your dedicated, really, and tremendous leadership of our caucus on so many issues. I am a proud progressive, and I think we hear a lot of candidates now talking about being proud progressives. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you, because without your help, and without your really being the driving force for this Progressive Caucus budget, we would not be able to put together such a real prosperity budget, which of course is direct opposite from the austerity budget which we see the Republicans trying to put together. They haven't even gotten it together yet. So let me also thank Congressman Pocan. I serve on the budget committee with him, and I tell you, his progressive values and what he drives out of our budget committee reflects everything that you all we all stand for in terms of a budget being a moral document. So thank you, Congressman Pocan, for that. This budget builds pathways out of poverty. So a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, we create 3.6 million good-paying jobs. We expand educational opportunity from pre-K to debt-free college for all. We rebuild our crippling roads and bridges, and we increase our investments in proven anti-poverty programs that lift people out of poverty into the middle class. As a member of the Budget Committee, I know that the people's budget is the budget that reflects the needs and the dreams and aspirations of the American people, and not the needs of the super rich and the dreams of special interests. The people's budget is the one that really Congress needs to pass. The Pentagon, first of all, needs to be reshaped to meet our current and our future security needs. The people's budget, not only does it end these endless wars, but it invests in the American people. It saves billions of dollars by stopping these endless wars and by putting our hard-earned resources and tax dollars into a strong, smart national security. Our budget also audits the Pentagon, something that should have been done, mind you, 25 years ago. But the Pentagon keeps dragging its feet. It keeps dragging its feet. You're audited, your organizations are audited, every agency is audited, but the Pentagon isn't. So the people's budgets, our budget says not anymore. We must audit the Pentagon. So once again, thank you so much for being here, but also for being the champions for families, for education, and for opportunity for all. Thank you again. Thanks. Let me bring forward now, I believe it would be Chris Shelton, President of Communication Workers of America.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Shelton. I'm the president of the Communication Workers of America. I want to thank all of you for being here today for the introduction of the Congressional Progressive Caucus's People's Budget. I especially want to thank CPC co-chairs Ellison and Grijalva, as well as CPC Vice Chair Mark Pocan, for their excellent work in putting together this budget. The federal budget says a lot about what kind of nation we're going to be going forward. The people's budget is one that we can all be proud of, as it will restore to working people and begin the path to rebuilding our middle class. For too long, our government has failed to make the investments that we need to ensure a vibrant, growing economy. One of the most important investments we have to make is in education, so that today's young people can learn the skills they need for the jobs of the future. The people's budget will put an end to the soaring cost of college and put in place a new plan for debt-free college. The budget will do this by putting a tax, a small tax, on the Wall Street speculators who sent our economy into collapse in 2008. My union has been on the forefront of seeking a speculation tax on Wall Street, sometimes called the Robin Hood tax. So not only will the people's budget pay for its investments in smart ways, it will also help put the brakes on the Wall Street casino that continues to put our entire economy at risk. And that's just the beginning of the great ideas that are included in this budget. It also does important things like ensuring that workers who are displaced by job-killing trade deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership will be able to get back on their feet and get the assistance they need. We all know that it's a tough fight to get good ideas like these enacted, giving the unfair power that big campaign donors have to corrupt the legislative process. And that's why it's so very important that this budget also establishes a system for public financing of elections to end our corrupt system. When you put all these ideas together, the people's budget is a win for today's economy, for the investments in the future, and for setting up a political process that actually lets regular Americans' voices be heard. You know, some folks on the other side running for president are saying things like they want to make America great again. Well, if the Congress and those people running for president really want to make America great again, this is the way to do it. The people's budget. You want to make America great again? Ask the people's budget. Thank you very much.
The next one should be Becky Pringle.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Congressman Grijalva, Ellison, and Pocan for your leadership on the Congressional Progressive Caucus and for inviting me to join you today on behalf of the 3 million members of the largest labor union in this country, the National Education Association. Yeah, let's get it. Unlike the Republican budget that was released today that cuts and slashes, no surprise, and disinvests in America, the CPC budget is truly the people's budget because it helps lift up students and their families regardless of their zip code. That's why we, the NEA, applaud this budget. We believe that prioritizing the allocation of resources in a way that reflects our true commitment to a quality education for all of our students is absolutely critical to the prosperity and to the safety and to the strength of this country. This budget helps students get off on the right foot by investing in quality universal pre-K and early Head Start. Not only that, it fully funds the Individuals with Disabilities Act and Title I, the nation's 2 flagship programs aimed at closing opportunity gaps. This is critically important as states and local school districts begin to implement the new Every Student Succeeds Act. And after our students do everything we've asked of them to prepare for college, this budget finally also helps them bring that dream to reality, to bring it within reach of those students by introducing reforms that help students graduate debt-free. We need to do more. We need to do more as a nation to ensure that higher education is within reach for all of our students, especially, most especially, those kids who come to us with greatest needs. And we need to ensure that all of our students have the opportunity to earn degrees without debt. We must start by treating education as the investment it is. And the people's budget does just that. We are building the next generation of leaders, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus understands that we must give our students the attention and the future they deserve. We truly appreciate the work that this caucus is doing to roll back years of harmful austerity cuts by investing in our educators and in this nation's students and their families. Dr. King reminds us that the time is always right to do what's right. And the CPC, you're doing what's right. On behalf of the educators and the millions of students that they serve, we thank you for your leadership on educational and economic justice and opportunity for every single American. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Congressman Ted Lieu. I'm so honored to be a member of the CPC and to be here to support the CPC budget. And one reason is because we in the CPC, we talk for those who don't have a voice. And it's really easy to be a member of Congress. What you want to do is simply amplify those who already have the ability to have a voice. So one of the things we do in this budget is we help the homeless. And how many of you know a homeless person that has the resources to hire lobbyists? How many super PACs exist to help homeless people? How many homeless people vote? So if we don't speak for them, no one else is going to speak for them. And that's why this CPC budget will increase Section 8 assistance to $11 billion in mandatory spending by 2020 for families with children experiencing homelessness to help cities, counties, and tribes move to eliminate homelessness in our communities. And the statistics are staggering. We know from the National Line to End Homelessness that every night in America, over 500,000 Americans are homeless and nearly 170,000 have no shelter at all. The CPC budget is a huge step to fixing that. As a veteran myself, ending veterans' homelessness is also a priority, and I'm very pleased that this budget will expand the HUD VASH vouchers, which give homeless veterans funding for both housing as well as services, and expand that to allow all veterans to have permanent supportive housing. And let me now conclude by saying it also will fully fund the Clay Hunt Veterans Suicide Prevention Act. This is a budget that is awesome for our veterans, and it's something that we need to pass, and so honored to be a part of this, and look forward to working with all of you to make America great. Thank you.
Well, first let me start off by thanking all of you for being here. It's great. It's probably the largest audience we have for a rollout of people's budget. And the leadership of Raul, Ellison, Pocan, it's incredible leadership, and some of the folks that have spoken here speak with great authority. And we've talked about debt-free college. We talked about infrastructure. We talked about the HUD, and we talked about homeless, veterans. Let me zero in a little bit more on the preschool youngsters, where we need to pay a lot of attention. The people's budget, if it were passed, it would solve a lot of problems in this country and probably lay out some certainty in the future. And so if we also look at the president's desire to have universal access to quality pre-K programs that allow working parents to balance and putting food on the table and ensuring that they're going to be able to have their children in school receiving a high-quality learning experience and at the same time being safe, that's going to be important. We need to know that fully funding Early Head Start, which could provide comprehensive and family-based support, that is showing to create stability and long-term success in our families that most are at risk. And we also know that from birth to age 3, that window is critical for the brain development of youngsters. Approximately 80% of brain development happens between birth and the age 3. And so when we look at preschool, early childhood, Head Start, it's an investment in the future of our youngsters. And we know that our youngsters, once they start school, they do not start on equal basis. So the budget really wants to look at equitable funding for each and every child, and the funding is not based upon the zip code that that child lives in. And so that's going to be critical. But more than anything else, if we look at youngsters and dropout rates and things like that, we know that we have what we call compulsory education law. What is that? It's a law that we passed in this country a few decades ago, to keep kids out of the labor force and put them into schools. And that meant that they had, by law, had to go to school for 10 years, from 6 to 16. Now, if we don't invest in these youngsters at preschool and early childhood and get them a good start into schools, then these 10 years will be it would be a barren 10 years. And if you look at the judicial system, they would probably look at that compulsory education of 10 years without a good investment, without a good experience, as if it were a determinate sentence. And that's why we have to look at our communities of color, look at our neighborhoods that are poor, and to infuse a budget like this to make sure that our youngsters get the head start that they need. They get the investment that they need, based upon each and every child's needs, so that they do not face a future as a young child as if they're going to jail to a determined sentence of 10 years. Let's make it work for them. Let's make it profitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee. Thank you so very much, Congressman Pocan, and to co-chairs Grijalva and to Ellison and to the wonderful unions that are here today supporting us and the wonderful groups that are supporting us. Let me give 2 or 3 points and just say that I am a soldier on the battlefield for the people's budget. But what is important to know is that all that has been heard in wherever you fall on this presidential journey. I'm so glad my good friend from the CWA's president himself made it very clear that there are, in essence, false speakers, billionaires talking about being a populist. And I'm still looking for whether the test has been passed. But 75% of America's wealth is held in 1% of the population. I know we use the 99%, but this is real numbers, and that itself is egregious. And so this budget is an equalizer. It is to, in essence, be, as has been said earlier, the spokesperson, the angel, the fighter, and the holder of justice for those who cannot speak for themselves. As a member of the Judiciary Committee, I'm very proud that this budget recognizes the empowerment of people through the vote and has a large section on more funding for voter protection. For if you go into any election in any state, and particularly in the South, you'll see the constant barriers preventing people from voting, particularly the heinous and Neanderthal laws of voter ID. So much so that people have not been able to vote. A 98-year-old woman in my congressional area came back and forth about 5 times, and they would not even accept her marriage license. I am glad that we are standing for voter protection. And finally, all roads turn toward ending mass incarceration. To do that, we must reform prisons, and we must deal with sentencing reduction. Many of us working on these issues, thank you, Congressman Pocan, for making sure that that funding was in for the Justice Department to begin an aggressive approach to sentencing reduction and the reduction of sentencing on the various drug offenses which we attempted to do. We're doing more now. Again, the People's Budget thanks all of you for your advocacy.
I think we lost our list, but I think, is the vote been called yet?
So they actually just called it at 1:30, so we still have.
Okay, so that's where everyone is going. We do have 2 more speakers, however, because I'm going to have to leave, I apologize. If there is from the media a quick question or 2, I can try to answer. Otherwise, we do have Josh Bivens from EPI, who knows the numbers way better than I do. I can answer more specific questions, and Jeff and Ayers from Planned Parenthood. But if there's a quick question or 2 before I have to leave, I'll be glad to. Yes.
Since you're on the budget committee, can you talk about what you find are the most dangerous or most egregious things in the Republican budget and how the people's budget counters that?
Sure. Well, they just released their budget that at least some of them agree with like an hour ago, literally, and I haven't had a chance to see the details. However, having been on the budget committee now, this is my 4th year, I can imagine it's going to be more austerity. I mean, that's what we've been seeing over and over introduced in their budget, and we've seen the real-life ramifications of that. A number of us just went to Flint, Michigan, and saw austerity in its most real and present way, the poisoning of almost 100,000 people in the city of Flint. So when every decision is made simply at the bottom line of a dollar rather than what the impact is and what it means to the public, that's the consequences you have. So tomorrow, we allegedly are marking it up in Budget Committee, assuming they can get the votes from their own caucus, and then we'll have a little better detail because we'll outline much of what's in there. But having just been introduced, I don't have specific things other than it will be more of the same, more of the austerity that they put out there the last 3 years that I've been. All right, so with that, let me hand it off to Josh, and then Jacqueline, and I do apologize, but votes have happened. Those of us who are left probably have to go vote, so Josh, thank you.
Thank you, and thank the CPC for, again, collaborating with DPI on this great budget. My name is Josh Bivens. I'm the Research and Policy Director at the Economic Policy Institute. The real heavy lifting on analysis this year was done by Hunter Blair, our tax and budget analyst, who's also here, and I will probably punt some questions to him, but just some big picture thoughts. The EPI-CBC collaboration on these budgets began years ago when the recovery was brand new and unemployment was still north of 9%. So the obvious immediate priority was providing support to a brand new recovery to accelerate full recovery. And that's what the first CBC budget did. Very substantial fiscal support would have vastly accelerated recovery. We would be at full employment by now for many years if that first CBC budget had actually passed. It did not pass, of course. It was largely ignored by the larger Congress. And then starting with the 2011 Budget Control Act, fiscal policy became historically austere. People know about the Recovery Act passed in 2009. The Budget Control Act was really an anti-recovery package that was as large as the Recovery Act, and somehow people don't know about that as much, but it's really important. So we're now almost 7 years into recovery from the Great Recession, and economic slack and weakness remains. And worse, we've got this growing body of evidence that says every year the economy sits below its potential, every year there's demand slack, we throw away a little of even the long-run productive capacity of the economy. Businesses don't make investments in technology and research because why would they? There's not enough customers coming in the door even to justify the factories they have. Why would they build new ones? Cash-strapped families can't afford to send kids to college, so you don't get skill formation on that front. We've got potential workers who either given up looking for work because it's been so long since we had a healthy job market, or they're stuck in jobs that don't fully utilize their skills. So basically, every single year, we are not at full employment and we do not secure a full recovery. We're throwing away another little piece of our future. So providing fiscal support in the short run, the way this year's budget does, can squeeze out that last bit of economic slack, stop throwing away that future potential, and finally start putting consistent upward pressure on wages and incomes for most Americans. And the long-term commitment to public investment that's embedded in the people's budget can help reverse the decline in productivity growth we've seen in the past couple of years. I mean, to put it really simply, businesses just don't seem to be responding to historically low interest rates by making job-creating investments. We don't have to wait on that. There are plenty of public investments with huge returns that we could just go ahead and do ourselves if we would follow the lead of something like the CBC budget. So I'll just end by saying I think the people's budget, it's not just evidence-based in its diagnosis and cure, although it is absolutely that. You can see that by reading our analysis of it. It's also prudent. You know, it is far riskier today to underestimate how much additional help the economy needs to finally get to a full recovery than to overestimate it. We've experimented with underestimating for 7 years, and we've thrown away year after year of potential growth because we refuse to actually cement the full recovery. It's time to stop that. We know it's really unlikely that this year's Congress is going to pass a really ambitious program of fiscal support and investments, but that just highlights again the continuing depressing disjuncture between what the economy actually needs and what is politically feasible with the current set of policymakers. And I'll end there and pass it off to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. My name is Jacqueline Ayers. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for Planned Parenthood Federation of America. We are pleased to thank all the members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus for a budget that is truly the people's budget. When a patient walks into a Planned Parenthood health center, they're there for high-quality, affordable health care, and they're certainly not there to make a political statement. Any young woman, man, college student, or mother doesn't only have health care on their mind. They have to think about all the things that they need, everything from needing child care, balancing a busy work schedule, being able to have access to equal pay for equal work, and being able to stay healthy. The people's budget understands this reality and the complex intersections that Americans and Planned Parenthood patients live with every day. The people's budget supports women and communities of color by endorsing Congresswoman Lee's bill to cut poverty in half in the next 10 years, which we heard her speak about. We know that women make up a disproportionate number of the people who are living in poverty and in this country. This budget addresses that. The budget has a proactive framework that denounces discriminatory funding of reproductive health care services, recognizing that when we cut these programs, it impacts women of color and low-income persons the most. This budget also addresses paid sick leave through the Healthy Families Act, introduced by Congresswoman Brenda. And the people's budget will ensure that women don't have to worry about losing their job in order to take care of a sick child or even their own health. And it helps to ensure that everyone, man, woman, and young person coming to a Planned Parenthood will continue to have access to affordable health care, which is critical for women's well-being and economic success. The Title X Family Planning Program serves critical needs access to birth control services, STD testing and treatment, as well as cancer screenings. When 35% of women consider their OBGYN their primary source of care, we must continue to fund programs like the Title X Nation's Family Planning Program. An increase to this program means that more women, men, and young people will have access to their full range of healthcare services. And finally, this budget ensures low-income women will receive the same insurance coverage for their health care as others, no matter how little money she makes, by repealing the discriminatory Hyde Amendment. It will take a budget, like the people's budget, to improve the lives of women, men, and young people in our country. And we know that when women have opportunities, instead of barriers, communities will succeed and get stronger. Thank you very much to the Congressional Progressive Caucus for offering a budget that will move us forward and invest in women. Planned Parenthood is proud to support the people's budget as well as standing with all of our allies. And thank you very much for the people's budget supporting our communities. And with that, I'm sure EPI will be happy to answer questions.
And if anyone has any questions for Josh, he's happy to answer a couple of them. Are there any questions? All right, if not, if you guys have any follow-up questions, you can come see me. I also have a couple packets here with the full budget and some other materials. If anyone's interested, they'll be up at the table. And if you would like electronic copies of that, just come see me and I'll give you my email.